Welcome back to the PricePlow podcast. We have Kaitlyn Kenna Smith here of the Powerhouse mentality here. Many of you who watch us on social media know Kaitlyn from the content she's been creating with PricePlow and around PricePlow in the community. Kaitlyn's an aspiring CrossFitter, and well, I'll let her introduce herself because she's super interesting and has her own podcast, Powerhouse Mentality. And we're excited to have you on. We've been very gracious and we're very happy to have you on the channel too, because you make some really cool and interesting content. So thanks for joining us and everything. And let's crack our drinks and get into it.
Yes, I need it.
So what do you have there, Kaitlyn, for those listening on audio?
We got the Raspberry Cream Ghost, my favorite. Saved it for today.
That's awesome. And I'm going to bust open a serial killer that was sent to me after the podcast with Doss. My favorite.
That's great flavor.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So yeah, give us the general introduction. I'm not sure if you have any, if we have a specific agenda, but I assume we're going to talk about you, your podcast, and then let's get into some of our favorite products, where we see the industry going, like your place in the industry, that kind of stuff. And I'm sure Ben will chime in at some point too.
Yeah, I'll give a brief intro on who I am right now in my life. So right now I post content on social media with PricePlow, also with myself, with the Powerhouse Journal. I have a podcast called the Powerhouse Mentality that I started back in 2021. And that is focused on mental toughness, mindset, discipline, nutrition, fitness. I have people come on and talk about their story, whether it be in the supplement space or just in life, about how they are doing incredible things. And I am training to become a professional CrossFit athlete. I'm a wife. I'm a dog mom. We just moved to North Carolina. That's really what I got.
So when we found Kaitlyn, I was just blown away by like your originality. Like, I think there are a lot of people out there that do reviews, people who kind of are just following the flow of the industry and kind of maybe, I don't want to say copying. There's a lot of great reviewers out there, but it all kind of feels very similar. And when I found Kaitlyn's content, I was just really impressed by the originality in all the content. Like, Kaitlyn, you have a lot of fun with the content that you make, but it also is almost always rooted in some sort of morality that you want to share with people. I like that, your podcast has a lot to do with mental toughness. You have a very interesting story. You are not, I think that like fit people on Instagram are a dime a dozen right now. Everyone kind of looks the same, trains the same, but I think you have like a really interesting like originality with your own thoughts. Can you take us through like how you got to this point in training?
Yeah, I mean, we can go all the way back. When I first started fitness, I was 14. And it's funny because I was always the kid who was like picked last in gym class. Like, I was not fit at all. I remember running like a lap around the track and having to stop because I was so out of shape. And then when I was 14, we can get real dark, but my dad was addicted to drugs. And one of the things that I did that helped me kind of escape that was I just went on a run. And so I just started running. And then through running, I found, oh, well, I can do lifting. And I started playing basketball. And then I started incorporating nutrition. And unfortunately, the nutrition piece, it kind of turned into an obsession. And social media started to tell me like, oh, fruit is bad for you. You have to eat 1,200 calories a day. Like, don't eat this, don't eat that. And I just kind of fell into it. And I developed a really bad eating disorder. And when I got to college, I started studying nutrition. I got my personal training certification, and I worked in gyms throughout the majority of my life until 2020, when the gyms all shut down for COVID. I kind of took a leap and did everything on my own. But all of that saying, the reason why I do what I do today is because of who I was in the past, because I want to help people who were in my situation, who were afraid of certain foods or certain supplements or certain things because of what they see on social media. I want to show them that that's not actually how it is in real life.
Yeah, sorry. I was just to say, like, when you look at Kaitlyn, what you post every day, like there's supplement content, but like my favorite thing that I see from you is the training footage, because I guess there are some supplement creators that still post training footage, but like even like myself, I don't think I post enough of it because we want to talk about pre-workouts and energy drink flavors. But you post some footage like really getting after it. Like a lot of people like to post footage that it looks comfortable, it looks like it's aesthetic, but like Kaitlyn posts some sets where she is clearly dying, and it's really cool to see you grow through things. We've seen you deal with injuries, recently some health stuff. Like you don't pull punches and you don't censor. You have like a really great message that is very transparent, and I think it's really inspiring to a lot of people because CrossFit is not maybe super mainstream, but it has a really big following. And running is a big topic right now. Lifting is a big topic right now. Women in fitness and lifting is a big topic. And you kind of just like address all of it, which is really cool because like anyone could follow your content and feel like they get nutritional supplement like or training advice, or even just like full on life advice from it. So were you like, at what point did you go from running to CrossFit and lifting? Because that seems like it's a bit of a transition.
Yeah. So I went from running and then I started doing Beachbody programs, which I think we're all familiar with. And of course I look back and I'm like, wish I didn't do those. But it introduced me into lifting because after I did those, I eventually, the first day that I was a personal trainer when I was 18 at a gym in New York called Blink was actually the first day that I ever worked out in a gym. But I obviously didn't tell anybody that because I was just doing Beachbody workouts in my basement. And then through that, I started, okay, let me start barbell squatting. Let me start deadlifting. Let me start doing all these motor movements. And I hired an online coach and I started actually doing bodybuilding first. And I did 2 bikini shows. But what I realized through that is it was just another outlet of an eating disorder. It was like, oh, well, I'm bodybuilding prepping. So that's why I'm losing so much weight or why I'm in such a big deficit. And in 2020, I was just doing bodybuilding training kind of more for fun. At that point, I didn't have any aspirations to compete, but I love competing. So I wanted to find something else that I could compete in. And in 2019 or 2020, around that area, I started doing some CrossFit like conditioning pieces in the gym. And then when COVID shut the gyms down and I had like dumbbells in my garage, I realized, okay, maybe it's the time to kind of go all into this CrossFit thing and try it out and see what it does. And I fell in love with it. I drank the Kool-Aid and now I'm addicted and I can't go back. And then 2 years ago, I really made the decision to go all in and say, you know what, I'm going to focus on the whole thing of being an athlete, fueling my body properly, recovering, doing the double days, doing the sessions that I need to do, working on the things that I suck at, and really just pushing myself beyond what I thought I was capable of.
Yeah, one of the things I want to talk about the diet thing for a second, because like one of the things you mentioned was the 1,200 calorie thing. And like we've been duped and siped into so many stupid things. But to me, one of the most insidious is for active women to get 1,200 calories. It just like keeps coming up over and over. And I personally think that it's like essentially ludicrous. And I'd like to get your take on that and like any advice to women and kind of like tell us where you are from a diet standpoint and like how you get out of this 1,200 calorie thing or what, like go a little deeper there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of women, because I do coach a lot of women too, and one of the biggest things is so many of them are afraid to eat because for the majority of their life, they've been taught carbs are bad, oh no, wait, fats are bad, you should only eat protein, and it's kind of ridiculous at that point because what I find for most women is if they're eating 1,200 calories a day, one, most of them aren't actually eating 1,200 calories a day, they're just not tracking it properly because then they start binging at night because they're depriving themselves so much, which is just like a never-ending cycle of hell, or their hormones completely crash and then they can't lose weight because their metabolism is adapted to that low of a calorie. So what I have them do generally is I literally will have women add in just a little bit like, hey, let's add 100 calories this week. Let's add 100 calories next week. Let's add like half an apple to that meal. Let's add like a little bit of peanut butter here. And then they start to realize that, oh, I'm not actually getting huge from eating more. I'm actually getting more toned. I'm performing better. I feel better. And it's absolutely life-changing for me. Right now, I took a little bit of a dip after I had surgery 3 weeks ago. So now I'm like at 26, 27, but I'm trying to get back up to where I was at like 3,100. And I need to actually probably eat more than that because my body gives me red flags like, hey, we're training really hard, but you need to fuel a little bit more too. So it's actually crazy when you start increasing your calories, what you realize you're capable of.
I love so much about what you said. And one thing that you put in there that I think is a gem that a lot of people don't talk about is the difference between tracking and reality. This is like well established in data that the majority of people cannot reliably and accurately track their own intake. And then you add in binging or maybe snacking or just untracked calories from snacks and like dressings and stuff like that. And then when you compare that with the fact that they probably have like a mental thing going on where it's like, oh, basically starved myself for 8 weeks and nothing happened. So they feel like nothing works because they weren't really even doing what they thought they were doing. It becomes a huge frustration. And then now you have the influx of GLPs and all these other interventions that can like kind of throw that off. The fact of the matter is that the majority of people probably underfuel themselves. I also have a whole thing about sedentary lifestyles because it's very hard to have this conversation when we're also accounting for people that don't move at all. But if we can all accept we're just talking about people that are active, most of them are underfueling. Most of them are dehydrated as well. Mm-hmm. It was one thing that came into my mind while you were talking about like maybe numbers of calories. I also think like how many people when they get those red flags also could be helped by, some potassium, and they probably have enough sodium in their diets, but some water and some magnesium, like how many of these people who are like, lightly active, hit the gym or outside or whatever, but they are completely underfueling themselves. I would say it's a pretty large population.
Oh, absolutely. Like one thing that I have a lot of people do is when I first start somebody, I don't want to throw everything at them all at once. Like we know we need to move more. We know we need to strength train, eat on appropriate amount of protein and calories, water. One thing that could be life-changing for someone is just having them drink a gallon of water a day. They will literally feel like you did something magical to them because now they're actually hydrated for the first time in their life.
Yeah.
There is, you're dealing with women. There is, I got to get this study up. A study that showed that with women, especially like just like a few percent of dehydration makes their mood deteriorate like significantly. So the meme going around was like, hey, if your woman's not in a great mood, like get her a hydration drink or something. And so there was actually data backing that up. So it's just like a lot of these basics that we almost take for granted because we're like living in it all the time. People just forget and time just flies by and you haven't had a sip of water. So sometimes like the basics definitely help out, but I have to find that study.
It's everybody's like, oh, caffeine, I'll have caffeine. That's why I feel so shitty. And then it's like, no, actually you're dehydrated. You probably could use some water, maybe not even electrolytes. You might just need water.
Yeah, especially with the sodium intake for most Americans, some water, just alone would probably be really helpful. I think that's a great discussion too. We all joke a lot about energy drinks. It definitely is like a bit of like a social thing, but how many times do people reach for a caffeinated beverage when like maybe just a 16-ounce water like would do so much more of a difference? One thing you also mentioned was like the double days and like the increase in training for yourself. How did that affect you? Because I recently started really upping my frequency of training when I switched from like powerlifting, heavy lifting into more of like an athletic pursuit where I am doing strength training, but I'm also, training a sport and I'm also doing cardio. And I actually find it easier like than when I was like bodybuilding or powerlifting because I put so much pressure on those big training sessions. But now that I have shorter, more frequent sessions in different disciplines, I actually enjoy it and I feel like I'm doing better.
I absolutely agree. Like, for example, over the weekend, my brother and his wife came into town because it was my husband's birthday. So on Friday, I was like, hey, instead of doing 2 sessions, can I do 1 session? So my coach just gave me 1 longer session. And it reminded me how much I love doing double sessions because I was dead by the last piece. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I just get a lot more out of my training when I hit it hard, fuel again, hit it hard, and then refuel and recover for the next day.
Yeah, I've definitely realize that a lot of listeners are going to be thinking it must be nice to have a job where you can do that. So I think we're all very blessed that, sometimes I call Mike and he's swimming laps at noon. It's definitely like a good life to have, but it's one of my favorite things right now is like, I can get up and do 45 minutes of cardio, like go for a really great bike ride, come back, have breakfast, work for a while, and then have my training session. And I don't have to put all of these things together. I don't have to get through, 2 hours of legs if I don't want to. And if I split it up, my fitness has improved so much because I'm like focusing on these different aspects and really giving them the attention that they need at the time. And I also can properly fuel for them and properly recover from it as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a game changer in itself. And also I will add the must be nice thing. We've earned the ability to have the schedules that we have. I don't know about you guys. I know that you guys have worked hard in your life, but like when I was working at the gym, I was working literally, I would show up at 5 a.m. to work out, and then I would be the general manager from 9 to 9, and then I'd go home and do it again. So sure. We've earned the life that we have.
I appreciate you saying that because that is it's a topic of conversation in our house when I spend time, working out or whatever. And it's like, yeah, there's other things that could be done, but this is the life that I've designed in a way. And I know that all three of us are probably talented enough that we could go work at a corporation and probably make more money or have better benefits and everything. And you have to ask yourself, what are you really optimizing for? Like, I'm not optimizing for every last dollar at this point. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs are, and all of us could probably sit around and make like 10 billion videos, and make tons, significantly more money or get bigger followings or whatever it might be. But at the same time, and I'm not as aggressive as an athlete as either of you really are, but we love it. And it's like, when I'm not training to at least a certain level, everything else falls apart anyway. So it's almost like I'm in this hamster wheel that I enjoy at least, but it's like, I'm not going to get out. So I appreciate you saying that there.
Yeah. I mean, I get a lot of people who even message me, like, if I get the new Gorilla Mind energy drink sent to me and somebody's like, oh, Lucky must be nice, I wish they'd send it to me. And then I go to their profile and I'm like, well, why would they? You don't post content.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts of working with Kaitlyn has been getting to, it's hard to identify these things, but like help mentor a little bit her through her, you're not a beginner creator by any means anymore, but like when you get to that intermediate spot where you're dealing with sponsorships, you're dealing with feedback from commenters, like all that stuff. Yeah, it is a little bit validating, because when I was dealing with it, Mike was looking at me like, I remember when YouTube comments were hitting me like that. And it's, when dealing with that stuff is an essential part of being a creator, unfortunately. But that is, it's part of the gig. It is definitely part of the gig, deal with the negativity. But I also feel that way when I see creators in other industries that, we get a $3 energy drink and people are jealous of us, but I see people in like cars and tech that get thousands of dollars of promotional product and stuff. It must be nice. It definitely must be nice. But I know one of the things I want to say though is Mike mentioned it's just what he likes to do. And before I really got into cardio and the way that I enjoy it now, I would always hear Mike talk about how his swimming was his thinking time. And I definitely understand that too now. Like, even if I have an off day from like legitimate strength training, I still really like to wake up and do some sort of movement. That's why I've really fallen in love with like running and biking, is because it's not really super taxing on me to do like 40 minutes of zone 2, but it's really great just overall for my mind and my body and my day. It's part of like my routine that just, I do videos better after I've done my cardio. It's just a fact.
100% agree. I think if I didn't train or if I didn't do anything, like even on my rest days, I'll do something, whether it be like a zone 2 run or a zone 2 bike or just a long ruck or something, just because I know I wouldn't be pleasant to be around. I wouldn't be my best self. And I think that's something that people don't think about is, yes, fitness does take time, but you're going to spend that time somewhere else. And why not invest in yourself? Because you're going to be able to show up so much better for everybody and everything else around you if you're fit.
Yeah.
On that note, like, okay, so there's thinking time cardio. It's like what in the pool, I'll call it garbage yardage, or like a jog that's basically whatever, And then there's go time, where there's no thinking done whatsoever, except for trying to like make sure I'm doing everything properly and everything. Kaitlyn, when you are, so like during the thinking time, that's when you could like script videos or articles or posts or whatever I'm going to post on LinkedIn. That usually comes out of the pool, honestly. But Kaitlyn, when you're doing CrossFit, are you able to do that at all? Or is CrossFit seems like so intense all the time?
Sometimes. Sometimes it depends, because like doing everything that I do, so I'm not just like going to the class and doing the Metcon and then doing like a strength piece. I'm doing accessories, I'm doing strength work, I'm doing Olympic lifting, gymnastics, skill work. I'm doing like longer conditioning pieces. So there will be times where I'm doing like a 60-minute bike session, and maybe it's more of a zone 2 relaxed session where I can have those thinking moments. Sometimes I literally am just thinking, I cannot wait for me to be done with this because I'm hurting so bad. But there's a lot of technicalities to it. So while I'm snatching, I'm totally not thinking about videos. But when I'm on the bike, maybe for a longer period of time, or skiing or something, then I'm like, okay, what are different ideas? And sometimes even between sets, like between squats, I'll think, and I have my whiteboard and I literally write down stuff so many times on that thing.
Oh, that's smart. Awesome. Can I go back? You mentioned when at least like you're around 3,100 calories, or maybe that's during the 2 days or whatever. Can you talk about the macro split on that? Because that's definitely probably, I'm assuming that's higher than most women who aren't, except for like the most aggressive of athletes. Or where does that stand?
Yeah, I've always been somebody who can tolerate a lot of food. It seems like my body's just a hyper responsive, which I'll take that for sure. But right now I'm about 180 to 190 grams of protein, kind of just depends, which is a lot for my body weight because I'm about 127, 8, 9, somewhere around there. But I just find that I feel better when I'm eating more protein, probably because I'm breaking down so much muscle with the training that I'm doing. My carbs go anywhere from 425 to 450, just depends on the day. And then my fats kind of are sitting around 70 to 80.
Wow. Okay. I gotta up my game here. What, so with the protein, how much of that is a supplementation? Can you talk about some of the powders you're using, or chicken breast, beef? Like, what are you doing there?
Yeah. So protein wise, I do egg whites in the morning. I'll do a protein shake post workout. So I just do a whey protein isolate. Usually it's first form because it very simple whey protein isolate just sits well in my stomach. And then the rest of the time I'm doing chicken and either top sirloin or filet mignon, just like a lean cut of steak. And then I'll have a Ninja Creamy at night with just a whey protein. And that's it. I eat a lot of chicken.
Nice. Yeah. And so is your husband, tell me about your husband. He's in the military, right? Is he?
Yeah, he's a Green Beret right now he's doing drone teaching. So he's teaching the drone courses at Fort Bragg. He'll start like in a couple weeks because we just moved from Florida to here. But before that he was, and I guess technically still is, a Bravo. So he works with guns and stuff, but he's really into the drones. And now him and Ben are best friends with drones.
Of course. So yeah, does he follow along with the diet stuff, or how does that work in the household? Is he also doing basically a low fat kind of diet, or is he working with the chicken breast that you are a lot?
No, he does his own thing. He like weighs out his food. He tracks his macros occasionally sometimes. But he goes highs and lows. So he's a guy who grew up in Texas. He could eat literally everything and anything that he wanted. But he seems like now he turned 30 on Saturday. He wants to kind of dial things in and see what he's capable of for the next couple months here.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a warning for him. The day I turned 30, when I played volleyball, rolled my ankle. So I was like, oh, this is how it's going to be. Awesome.
So Kaitlyn, when you talk about like 3,100 calories for a woman might sound like a lot to some people. It might be a little shocking. Is that for the 2-a-day like purpose? Is that like because of that volume of training? Like, do you have any sort of, I want to say like algorithm or whatever, like you have benchmarks for people who are training at certain levels? Like for someone who's just training 3 to 5 times a week, like how do you visualize these calories? How do you conceptualize their diets?
Yeah, a lot of times it comes down to just trial and error. And I know that's that's the answer that people don't want to hear. They just want to be given a specific number and be like, this will get you to your goal. But we need to play around with it because everybody's different. Some people who are my size, my height, even my activity level might be not able to eat as much as me, or they might have to eat more. The way that I like to do it is generally I'll take somebody's weight and I'll multiply it by 10 to 12 and I'll see where they're at from there. And we'll kind of, okay, if you're losing, gaining, how you feel. I go a lot more off of biofeedback rather than scale weight, because the scale can fluctuate for so many different reasons, especially for women and hormones. But like, how are you sleeping? How's your digestion? How's your recovery? How are you feeling during the day? How's your energy levels? How is your sleep? Because if your body is stressed because it's not getting enough fuel, you will know. It's hard to ignore it after a while.
Yeah, I like a lot of the things that you're saying because a lot of people want like a straight answer about it. But like, as much as I always kind of base my first philosophy on diet to in calories in, calories out. At the end of the day, we are not strictly bomb kilometers. Like we have a lot of inputs, we have a lot of outputs, and we have a lot of like equation in the middle. And it's very difficult to like measure someone in a lot of different ways. It's very easy to look at the scale. Like I think it's a mistake to ignore the scale entirely. But it's also okay to understand what's really happening with it. So I understand when people have clients not totally go off the scale, because to your point, bloating, like hydration, sleep, stress, there are so many things that can change the scale, especially with women. But at the end of the day, it also is kind of a tool in its own that will reflect in other ways, like the mirror or how you feel during training. And people don't want to hear that it's a trial and error phase. But like, really, I mean, that's the best thing you can do is start somewhere and control it, because most people have never had a controlled diet in their life. And I think that's like the biggest step, is just to control the variables and watch what changes from there. That's it. That is a really sensible answer, and we're really appreciated.
Yeah, I like to tell people that it takes longer than you think it will take, and it takes longer than you want it to take every single time. And when it comes to the scale, I have two different things that I do, and it really depends on the person. Sometimes I'll have that person completely learn how to desensitize themselves from the scale by literally weighing themselves every single day and seeing how it fluctuates up and down. Because then you look and you're like, oh, well, I'm not gaining 3 pounds of body fat overnight and then losing it the next day. I just had a really stressful day, or I slept terribly, or I ate more sodium or water or whatever you did. Or I just say to somebody, hey, we're just going to focus on the input. You're going to focus on the habits. And then 90 days from now, we'll step on the scale and see where you're at. Just depends on the person.
I really like what you said there, because my struggle with having people weigh themselves less is that they're already on a curve that's moving. And so if you measure less frequently, there's a chance you're getting all of the wrong parts of that graph. And then that makes them feel worse. I love measuring themselves more often, because then you really become familiar with the ups and downs, especially if you're controlling their inputs, because then they understand, like, even though I'm so locked in on these things, it's still moving, and it's something that I can't entirely control on my own. And then I find that a lot of people then learn to control those other things, like their stress, like their sleep and hydration, which is really kind of interesting. When you talk about
me the most, because I have like a horrible relationship with the scale, obviously coming from an eating disorder. So what my coach had me do is literally weigh myself every single day for a very long period of time, so I could see, like, you're doing the same thing every single day, but the scale is not staying the same regardless. And some days it goes down when you ate the same, sometimes it goes up. And then, like, after a hard leg day, your body is super inflamed, so your weight is up. And it's just very interesting, because then you start to realize, oh, okay, like, I actually can't control it, so why am I even trying?
Yeah. And then it's funny, because I always, at the end of the day, try to, like, even when we get deep into these kinds of conversations, remind people, like, we are not sedentary like normal people are. So when you look at like how our bodies react to all of these things, people who don't train at all would have very little body awareness of any of these concepts. They wouldn't understand any, and like, it's very hard to like convince them that all of these things are natural. But when you train legs for months and you start to see how your body reacts, you're like, oh my God, like, I'm in so much pain this next day. My body is like compensating with inflammation, all these other things. You're like, oh, well, this is actually entirely normal to expect. And it becomes a much healthier thing. When you talk about women's hormones and them being more complicated, is that something that you've spent time like researching and understanding? Because that's a huge topic recently with PMOS, PCOS, and all these things. And I'll admit I am not the expert on it, but it's been really interesting to kind of watch and pay attention.
Yeah, definitely. And the biggest thing that comes with hormone fluctuations and people having their hormones tank and stuff, it really comes down to stress. Because stress is the trigger for inflammation, and inflammation is the trigger for disease. So disease being also like hormone dysfunction. So what I find is, for me, my hormones are all over the place more when I'm in a hard training block, when I'm maybe not fueling enough, when I'm not sleeping as much, when my life is stressful. People just tend to have their hormones go down south that way. And people don't realize that. They think that, like, oh, something's actually wrong with me, I can't control it. They say it's genetic, but usually everything is in your control if you really look at it at a much bigger angle.
Yeah. There's been a big phenomenon of like science-based creators saying that, you know, like nutritionists and coaches shouldn't talk about this, and that it's like, you know, too complicated for, you know, your internal medicine type people to grapple with. But the vast majority of people that I see, and might be a hot take, I don't think you guys will disagree with this, but the vast majority of people that I see who claim they can't control these things don't really control much in their lifestyle to begin with.
I absolutely agree with that.
And it's really difficult to like help people who don't have control of the variables, because, you know, maybe you could throw pharmaceuticals at things and kind of like beat the crap out of your hormones into submission. But if you don't have your diet and sleep and hydration in check, then you don't really have a even playing field to really like start to control variables, if that makes sense.
Yes. I mean, I see people all the time who are like, oh, well, I have PCOS. Well, I can't lose weight. Well, no, I had a huge cyst on my ovary and I am definitely fit, you know, and my cortisol was through the roof for a really long time. It probably still is. I need to check it again. But I was all dropping weight. I wasn't getting fat, you know, so it just comes down to my habits are dialed in, are yours.
Right. and it's hard to then it's hard to really see any benefit from anything. Like we're throwing ashwagandha at people who don't take care of themselves in the beginning. So it's like it feels like a waste so often when I talk to a lot of these people, because they want quick fixes. But the fact of the matter is it's going to take a few weeks for us to even like get to a like I said, even playing field. So is this a lot of like what you deal with coaching? Do you coach a lot of like normal mainstream folk that need help with these types of things?
Yeah, mostly. I actually only have like one person who would be considered like more athlete based. Everyone else is just general population, people who just want to be healthier, be stronger, lose weight, be leaner, whatever they want in their life. And a lot of it does come down to like, can we just be consistent with your habits? Because that's where most people go down. And are we tracking properly? That's like a question I have to ask the same person every single week, because, ooh, wait, I didn't track my coffee, or I didn't track the sauce, or I didn't track the chips that I ate when my kids were here. So again, it comes down to being completely honest with yourself. And if you completely, literally, relentlessly honest with yourself, brutally honest with yourself, you can see results. But that's really what it comes down to. Most people just don't want to be honest with themselves.
Yeah, especially like, and that's even like talking about moderation. If you're honest with yourself about the moderation aspect, like I went to brunch yesterday, a brunch buffet with my family, because it was Father's Day. And I didn't bring a Tupperware of food because it was Father's Day. And I had a little bit extra French toast because it was Father's Day. And today I woke up not, following the same trend that I had taken for the last 6 weeks because it was Father's Day, and it's like, as long as I understand that, I'm going to be on track tomorrow. But if you understand moderation, I mean, I'm going to go for a bike ride later today and use up all of those carbs, and it's kind of easy to understand the trends. And I think that's really good perspective, because I feel like a lot of the time as like industry insiders, we talk to athletes, we talk to formulators, scientists, and we think like so niche that we forget that most people honestly really just struggle with the fundamentals. So that I think that's really great perspective for you.
Yeah, that's one of the things I try to do with my content, is even if it's something super like sciencey and niche, I try to make it so easy for the normal person to understand that, like, if somebody never took a supplement in their life and they just wanted to be genuinely healthier, they could be able to make a decision on like, oh, is this the right thing for me? Or is this something that I should look into? Or maybe not yet.
Right. I mean, my biggest thought process when I'm starting content is thinking about normal people swiping through Instagram, because we're going to get served to them. Mm-hmm. How do we make them not be, because the average swipe through rate on Instagram is like 97%. 97% of viewers don't stay and watch your piece. So how do you keep that normal person who doesn't care what withanalytes are to stick around and listen about ashwagandha? That's the biggest thing to remember. And it can be difficult, but like here's another example. Creatine gummies a couple weeks ago was like a huge topic, and I feel like constantly people are like within the insiders of the industry are saying creatine gummies are dumb because you could just take an unflavored powder. Why don't you just mix this unflavored powder? But they don't realize both of my parents right now are taking creatine, and the only reason is because they come in tasty strawberry flavor from Vitamin Shop gummies.
Same with my mom. She will not take it unless it's a gummy. She doesn't want to drink any more powders. It's not exciting. It's more fun when it's a gummy, and people are more consistent. So would you rather somebody not take it, or would you rather them be consistent with taking a gummy?
Right.
And that's when it's like one of those things where people at the top of the industry are arguing about these niche things when there are people who are like, I don't even know what protein is.
Right. Absolutely. And when you think about the percentage of people that are going to mix up like a weird white powder and drink it versus the amount of people that will eat a blue raspberry gummy, it is such a huge percentage of people that it makes it so much more accessible, which then grows our industry. And it just blows my mind when we have people that are acting like Joe Schmo, who's 50 pounds overweight, walking into Walmart. They think that he should, like, just on his own volition, prefer this unflavored sandy powder over something that honestly tastes good. Mm-hmm. It is kind of, I think it's missing the forest for the trees. And a lot of the perspective that you share with like normal consumers helps bring us back to that, because that really is the kind of the goal of the industry, is to improve overall health.
Yeah, everybody just overcomplicates everything. That's really what it comes down to. And a lot of times they want to overcomplicate it so that they can get more likes, more views, more comments. Or like, I see this now a lot, is that people are saying creatine is a conspiracy theory. And it's like a way to inject us with different things because it's becoming so mainstream. And it's just absolutely ridiculous when you look at it, because there's so much research backing up creatine and how beneficial it is for not just muscular, right, but also cognitive health. And it's just another example of, oh, well, everybody's saying this, so I need to be different and say this so that way I get more views. And that's just like, do you have integrity?
Yeah, I understand. I have played devil's advocate so many times that when I see someone doing it, unfortunately, about creatine, it's like, okay, I get it. But like,
it was only a matter of time.
Yeah. But the founders of ISSN got into fist fights at conferences over creatine because previously people didn't listen to us. I mean, how long, Mike, have you been talking about creatine, screaming into the void that is the internet, with people telling you, no, it's a steroid?
Yeah, I love it. It's because it comes up in every conversation. And I've seen the conspiracy theories too. And I think we're close enough to the source to understand that it's definitely not, because there's just not that much. There's not enough like actual devious activity or money to be made in a way that would be a conspiracy. Like I don't support that. But at the same time, I am also not a creatine mega doser. I think, this whole more is always better is not always better. But at the same time, like if someone's in doubt, I would just say, you know what, just take 2 grams. Like 2 grams is what basically males excrete. It's like an insurance coverage for people. And if you get into 20 grams, yeah, you might have some extra things happening in your body, or the issue of all the impurities maybe adding up if you have a cheaper source, which is why we like to work with like NMB Nutrition, for instance, with the purest creatine. If you're going to mega dose it, you're at least going to get less of the impurities. So I can see some of that, but overall, like there's just too much research showing that even like, the 3 to 5 grams a day, or just knowing what it's able to do in your body, as long as you don't force your body into like creating this expensive molecule itself, is really helpful and beneficial. But yeah, maybe back in the day, like when Ben was talking about the ISSN days, all those studies were with loading, and they were loading 20 grams a day. And back then it was like super expensive. So maybe that was pushing a little bit of extra money. But at this point, I don't know, the ingredients, so you can get it so cheap from like Now Foods or whatever and they test super well. I don't think anyone's like becoming a trillionaire doing this here. So we just are excited about something that, like there is an I told you so kind of thing happening. There is a, hey, we were right. And it took a long time, and we got dragged through the mud because, some professional baseball players kind of like threw everyone under the bus and everything, and to save their own hides. And you come back to it and you're like, actually, our community is ahead of the curve, and we have some ridiculously intelligent people that are behind the scenes over here. And guess what? We were right, and you guys are 20 years behind. But no, you probably don't need to take 20 grams a day, But at the same time, 2, 3 to 5 grams a day, there's a ton of benefits. So, like, told you so, I guess.
Everybody just wants to believe everything is a conspiracy theory sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's getting pushed so widely right now that I can't really even blame people when they start to ask questions about it, because every time I open Instagram, obviously
it's trending for sure. Trending, creatine. I think probiotics are going to be the next thing that's literally in everything. Creatine seems to be the one right now.
Yeah.
So I was going to get into your stack a little bit. First off, it is a profitable ingredient. So people do enjoy that as the supplement companies are selling less like fat burners. And it used to be like pills pay the bills and everything. Less people want capsules. You've already talked about gummies. Creatine is at least a more profitable ingredient than a lot of these like hyper loaded pre-workout supplements, for instance. So I can see that, but either way, I was going to get into, your base stack. You've talked about the first Phorm protein, and then kind of where you see some stuff going with the supplement industry from your point of view as a content creator and someone who's also seemingly consuming a lot of content too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Generally the way that I see the industry going right now, as far as different things, is trending is different delivery systems. So similar to like gummies or different things, I feel like we're going to start getting weird with stuff. Like there are some things that there's like creatine in some bars. I think you just did a video on like mush or moosh, whatever it is. So it's interesting to see like, oh, there's creatine in this. I feel like I said, probiotics, they're starting to, like, they're in sodas. They're going to start being in different things, I think, as well. I wouldn't be surprised if omega-3s start showing up a little bit more as well. But I really think the biggest thing is functional ingredients, such as like different nootropics being put in more things. Like I think people at least from what I've seen posting more energy drink content, is people are more interested in just caffeine than they are as like, oh, I want to feel the focus, or I want like all these different ingredients that aren't in the Monster or the Red Bull. Like, ooh, I like the Gorilla Mind because of everything that's in it, or I like the Ghost because it has different things like that. So I feel like functional ingredients is the next big thing, like nootropic wise.
Yeah, I think giving a free game here. I think that acutely effective ingredients are like going to be the huge push, which is like a different way to say functional, like ingredients that you feel in the short term. I took this ingredient and I felt something different from it. And I think focus is probably one of the easiest things you can quantify, or, you know, you can prove on paper, because there's very subjective tests for that. But like, I think there are probably some other opportunities for mood and euphoria, but focus is like, you know, coming from the energy drink category, which is already like really leveraged on flavor. Like, people really enjoy it. People like to consume cans of things, and then you give them something that they feel is happening to them quickly. It's a fun experience. I mean, there's a reason why we drink so much of it. So I definitely agree with you. Those they're mosh bars. They had creatine, they have protein, and they have Cognizin in them too.
That's really interesting. I love Cognizin. It's probably my favorite ingredient. As far as focus, because like, for example, when I drink a bum energy drink, I just feel so locked in. It's great, especially when it has such little caffeine.
That's what's really cool about it, is that you can use less caffeine, and then you can use these other ingredients that add like maybe another vector to the experience. And I think it really comes down to the willingness of the ingredient company to step outside the box. A lot of people say they love Cognizin. I love Cognizin. But like, people didn't search out Cognizin for their products. Kiowa did a great job of going out into the industry and providing proof that their ingredient was stable for these things, and kind of helping companies develop this stuff. And, you know, we hear a lot of ingredient companies come to us and ask, like, how can we be like Cognizin? Frankly, we've been asked that. And it's really just willingness to collaborate and get out there and do interesting stuff. You know, a lot of ingredient companies are like, well, you know, our ingredient might not be effective or stable, or, you know, if you're willing to like invest and help these manufacturers or these brands like look into how can we make this ingredient work in a bar, then the opportunities open themselves up. And it's been really cool working with Cognizin and Kiowa, because they're very willing to check outside the box. You know, our industry, I think, has been kind of pigeonholed for a long time. We had our fat burners, our proteins, our pre-workouts, and everything was like in its own corner. But as we're starting to get over into foods and beverages, we're getting into some really interesting brands. I think that there's different thought processes. It's not all bros in foods and beverages. So it's been really cool. I still really do think, I agree with you, foods and beverages are going to be the future, because they're easy to consume, they're convenient, and you can offer like an experience that's like really quick.
Yeah, I also do feel like people are more leaning into health and wellness versus like the fat burner or the performance side of things. Because the amount of people who just ask me, like in my family even, like, what should I be taking if I want to be healthier, instead of what should I take if I want to lose body fat or if I want to lose weight? You know, because generally I feel like so many people would look at fat burners first for the first supplement. And I feel like more people are looking into, oh, maybe omega-3s or a probiotic or creatine, which I love seeing that, because I feel like more people need to be taking those things, and they're just not sexy like the fat burners are.
I agree with you. I feel like there's been a really large cultural shift in goals when it comes to transformations, which is really cool to hear, because there are people really looking at how can I overall be healthier. Like, run clubs are a huge push right now, or community fitness. There's so much more than just how can I lose 15 pounds by summer, which is, it is really, I don't know, it's validating. It makes me feel happy to be part of this industry, because years ago, I didn't really like being part of such like a diet forward industry. You mentioned First Form when we talked about protein. We don't oftentimes work with First Form. We hang out with them at a couple shows, but you are one of the biggest fans I know of First Form. And I love it because I've gotten to see it firsthand, and I've gotten to, you know, be around them. But could you explain to us why you love First Form so much?
Yeah, it probably has a lot to do with like when I first was introduced to them. So first of all, I love the people. I'm great friends with so many people who work there, or with so many people who are in the community, and they're just good people who just have really strong core values, who want to just be better, make people better around them, and truly just want to help people. I truly haven't met somebody who's just mean from First Form. I would also say when I first got into them in 2016, it was the first protein that I had that didn't like mess my stomach up. Two, it was one of the best tasting proteins I had at the time. And then three, when I first was brought into the community, I was really struggling with an eating disorder, and I had them just like welcome me in and help me. And I felt so supported, and I never didn't feel supported. Like sometimes I'll get packages from them with like, just like a card that's just like, hey, thanks for being you, or like specifically pointing out something on my social media. Or like I got an energy drink queen like little koozie thing that they made for me when I went to Summer Smash. It's just the little things that they do, and their products have definitely evolved so much over the years. Like I think 2 or 3 years ago they completely reformulated their protein. It used to have like 16 different ingredients that were honestly completely unnecessary. And now they're one of the only proteins that I see that doesn't have any gums in them, which for me, somebody who has a sensitive stomach, I'm a huge fan of that because I don't have any issues with their protein.
Yeah, I think we used to get a lot more of these comments that were like, why is First Form as big as it is? They don't have, X, Y, and Z. And this is coming from like really niche pre-workout consumers that felt like they needed to have all of these things. And I remember the first time I went to the Natural Body Block Party in New York, they are a huge partner with First Form. And First Form used to bring out like 20 athletes. They would bring Derek Wida, they'd bring like really top CrossFitters, they'd bring creators from all over America, and they'd have like 10 videographers. And it was like the smartest thing because you're putting them in person and you're creating content and you're controlling that content. But what that looks like to a consumer is a very, not that it isn't, but what it feels like is a very supportive community that you can relate to. You can meet them in person, you can be around them. Even if you don't meet them in person, it's easy to feel the support from their community. So when I was thinking about like the shifts in weight loss and culture and stuff like that, I was thinking about you going down to SummerSlam, which is like one of the coolest events all year round in fitness. And it's so cool to see like, yeah, they've upgraded their products and they're more modern now. But they were never really bad. It's just they weren't like NutraBio or Glaxon or something like that. But where they really invest their money is back into the community. Jarrett Bond, I think from there. I met him like 10 years ago on a business trip in Wisconsin where I was just visiting a local store out there. And to see how First Form through him like supported local business and went out of their way. I mean, I met this guy for like a matter of a couple hours, but like I remember this 10 years later. Like they're so forward in their efforts in the industry that like it's hard to ignore. And I mean, the MFCEO podcast, like preaches this type of stuff. They talk about it, but like as someone who sees every angle of the industry, like it's real, which is what's so cool about it. Because there's a lot of CEOs that have podcasts that talk big game and their company doesn't do the stuff that they talk about. But like First Form really embodies all of that. So I really wanted to ask you about all that because I think that, it's easy to listen to Andy Frisella say all this stuff and whatever, but like from the perspective of someone inside, like I can see you guys really do live in that community. It looks really cool.
Yeah, and everything that he speaks about, he literally lives. Like the amount of times I've seen him just walk, and he'll walk, and then he'll see a piece of trash, he'll turn around, he'll pick it up, he'll throw it out. Like he literally lives like that. Everything matters, and you should just be the best person you are, no matter where you are, no matter who's looking, even if nobody's watching. And if you go to their HQ and look at their gym, they clean it up so that literally every dumbbell is turned perfectly and every plate is perfect. So it looks like that nobody's ever worked out in this gym when a lot of people work out in it every day,
Yeah. I don't have like a behind the scenes technical, like this is not like a consumer thing, but as like a creator, I'm in love with how they take all of those things and communicate all of them. I also think it's really cool how the individual employees are empowered to make content as well, like behind the scenes as well. There's one guy there that like they have like random fights in their office between like the guys that train MMA. Like they like jump their friends in the office with boxing gloves. Like the creativity that they allow their employees to use in content is like, bar none, probably the best in the industry. And it comes through in everything. So, they invited you down to SummerSlam this year, right?
Yeah. It was unbelievable. They invited me, they invited Stone, they paid for our hotel, they paid for our flight. We had like the whole VIP experience, and it was like the best weekend of my entire life.
Is it so like for a normal person going to an event, like, cause you also went to the Arnold this year, like what do you get out of going to these in-person events?
Oh man, like I look for, they like refill my whole life, because there are a lot of times when I'm sure you guys can understand, it's like you're creating and you're putting out these videos and it's just you talking to a camera and you're just answering comments and DMs and things. And then you have all these people telling you that you're a piece of crap and that you're a waste of space and like you have no idea what you're talking about and you don't lift or whatever. And then you go and you meet these people and you connect with people and people come up to you and you say, oh my God, I love your content. You're so great. Your content has helped me so much. Or, you know, let me take a picture with you. It's just crazy to be like, okay, my content is making a difference in people's lives. I just need to stay focused on that. And it kind of refuels you and inspires you to just go harder at what you're doing, because I love what I do, but there are some days where it's just like, why am I doing this? And then I'm reminded when I put out a video and somebody messages me and they're like, I'm glad that you put that out. It really helped me out, you know?
Getting thank yous for content in person is like really impactful because you rarely get that online. I think, you know, we might be lucky because we have so many conversations that it organically comes out. But outside of like, you know, an email here or there or a LinkedIn comment on Instagram and YouTube, it is few and far between you get positive feedback. But you go in person, and like, it was funny this year, Spencer coming to supply side with us. This is the first time Spencer traveled with us, and his frustration of like every 5 feet we get stopped and we like form a crowd and have to talk to people. And Spencer's like, we really need to go. Like, you need to stop and keep moving. And it was cool when he stopped and he was like, I understand why this happens and I understand the value in it now. And getting that validation is really important. I know it's exactly what you're talking about. I live alone and I talk to a camera alone, and somehow it reaches, you know, tens of thousands of people. But most of the time, I do not have very much social life in real life where I'm speaking to people. So you go to those shows and it kind of fills your cup back up. Even if I think the three of us are generally kind of introverted people. I don't know if we would call ourselves entirely introverts, but like, I know we're all tired by the end of the show, but I think we all kind of refill our cup in a different way from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I'm very introverted. If it was up to me, I'd just be like all alone in my house all the time. You know, just me and my husband, that's all I need. But it really does, like, it's so exciting to go out to different shows. And I look at it also as like an opportunity to connect with different people and different brands and different, you know, people that I want them to know who I am. And I want them to know how I can add value to them or in any other way.
Absolutely.
Yes. One thing I want to comment on is that so it seems like a lot of the best content creators are introverted, and this is our way of building up our, you know, thinking. We do our thinking during the cardio or whatever, and then you get it out there and everything, and see how it lands and everything. And humans honestly weren't really meant for this either. So, you know, like Dunbar's number, 100, 150 people are in our tribe. So when you start catching those tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, then millions of people, it flips things upside down. So you have to like keep the perspective. But what I think is so crazy is when you say one little thing that to you is just second nature or totally normal, like you mentioned, adding some apples to your meal to bump up an extra 100 calories. And to you, it's like, whatever, you know, you just threw it out there. And someone takes that and it changes their life somehow. And then they come up to you and they're like, dude, you mentioned something about just adding something in like September of last year, and it sunk in the pill just a little bit deeper, and it like created this butterfly effect. And I've had this multiple times where people are like, they bring up things that I forgot I even said. And I'm not even making a lot of content or anything, but they bring up things that I forgot even said, and it took them down this rabbit hole that's like kind of changed things forever. And so you have this combination of power and responsibility, but the wildest thing is you don't even know what's really going to have the most impact. Like your main thesis for you is XYZ, but you actually said there's a little tiny thing that like threw someone down somewhere else. And I don't know, I have no point. I just think it's so fascinating. And that's why you have to be on your A game with a lot of this stuff and kind of plot out some good content, because you never really know what someone's going to latch onto. And but that kind of makes it fun too, fun and interesting. And it could just take it in a whole different, you know, direction.
I have two different examples of this. You're so right. It's so funny because it's like never the things you think are good.
Yeah.
Like one, I had a like an Instagram trend that we had like going with like a lot of our Discord community a couple years ago, where I was putting beef in my eggs in the morning. It was the way I was trying to get more protein in, and all of a sudden, like all of our friends in the community were posting their breakfast with eggs and adding beef to their eggs, and it's like, okay, like, you know, whatever. But I remember a few years ago when Glaxon had a GDA one time, I took it before bed. And there's like a lot of reasons why you might take a GDA before bed, but like it wasn't like I wasn't like saying any sort of claim to it or anything. I just happened to take it before bed. And I always remember that someone went to Supplement Snoop's Q&A and asked, why is Ben taking his GDA before bed? And I remember Justin texting me. He's like, what are you really trying to do here? Like, I'll answer it for him. Like, whatever. And I was like, I just had to take my GDA, dude. Like, it wasn't, and I was like thinking to myself, like, there are plenty of reasons I could say, like, well, I want to lower my blood sugar while I'm sleeping, or whatever. But it was really, I just needed to take my GDA for the day. And all of a sudden, like, I started taking my GDA before bed kind of regularly, honestly. And like a lot of people kind of were. Mike, I think you have a story with Grains of Paradise making it into like a formula at a certain dosage where like you wrote a blog and you said something, and like years later, I think like Apollon did it or something.
Yeah, I mean, so he was super. That was kind of different, but that was where I realized that we actually have an audience. So yeah, we just wrote an article on Grains of Paradise. There's a couple cool human studies that we still reference and everything. And so I met Rob for the first time when he was in Austin, and we hung out. And I'm like, dude, you put in a pretty good dose of Grains of Paradise and your fat burner there. Like, where did you learn about that? He's like, dude, I learned about it from your blog. And I was like, oh no, like people actually read this. And like, I gotta take this more seriously. It was like a really, really cool moment that we've brought up a lot of times here, where if you put it out there and you find your audience, like, people are going to take it in. So yeah, it's probably best that you cite the sources or try to, like, do your due diligence at least a little bit, because someone is going to read that and potentially take action on it. And thankfully, like, that ingredient worked out and everything, quite well. It's pretty, but that was one of those moments where I was like, oh wow, like this is happening,
That's even more terrifying to think, because there are so many people putting out terrible information that people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And then they hurt themselves,
Well, yeah. And I think it like becomes that is like a self-fulfilling prophecy when then people make a lot of content putting people down for the things that they share. And it makes everything, people want it to be very black and white. Things are true or false. They work or they don't. They're good or they're bad. And like one of the best pieces of advice that Mike hit me with early on at PricePlow was, I remember like someone put like magnesium oxide in a product, and I said, magnesium oxide doesn't work. And Mike was like, well, to say it doesn't work, that's not true. It does something. There's some sort of thing to it, but it might not be the most effective for what we're trying to do here. That's probably a more effective way to say this. And so at the end of the day, like you have to give some nuance. You have to explain like, hey, like, well, it's not working for this thing, or it would be better off to use this for your purpose. Like having some sort of cited study, like Mike said, or having some sort of like caveats, like this is why we're saying this, is really important. But on a 90-second Instagram reel, it's typically very difficult to like add all of this type of nuance to it.
Correct. And then there's just like a lot of rage bait out there too.
Well, there is that always, unfortunately. That's the hardest part to deal with right now. Like last week I shared this video in like our content creator chat where it was like this woman was saying like creatine monohydrate bloats everyone. And she used a specific stat. She said 70% of people who take creatine monohydrate experience some sort of side effect. I don't know where she pulled that number out. I tried to find that and I couldn't find it. And unfortunately, then I start going down this whole rabbit hole of putting together a video about why she's so wrong. And sometimes I wonder, like, are we putting more negativity into the world when we say people are wrong? Like, are we hurting more people than if we just ignored it? Which is probably way more of a deeper question than we need to ask about our content than I am asking. But at a certain point, Mike's seen me ruin enough of my weekends over TikTok fights that it's like, well, is this whole thing really even valuable to be like going on this much of a crusade for?
Yeah, no, I had somebody the other day on a video that people still comment on. It was like me breaking down energy drink ingredients, and somebody was like, well, the most toxic ingredient in here is the carbonated water because it degenerates your kidneys.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that research.
Yeah, neither did I. I said, LOL, who told you that? And I got no response, so...
I've heard of people with like sensitivities and autoimmune diseases that carbonation itself can be a little inflammatory. Like, I don't know if that's...
I can see that, but I feel like it's more because of just gas and bloating rather than like it's actually destroying your kidneys.
Yeah. Well, I would also like the word bloating is like so misused. Like people think that we should be able to eat a full meal. Like Kaitlyn, if you eat 3,100 calories, like your belly will get a little distended.
A little bit, because there's food in there.
There's mass inside of this thing called a stomach that expands. Like it blows my mind that people don't realize when you put things in your trunk will get bigger. And then this whole discussion of bloating, people don't realize like bloating is a very different concept than having a distended stomach. But most people don't really train at a level where like this is the level where you can really level with them and talk about things. In my opinion, like I try to keep things very, very, very simple and like, we don't get into these difficult topics typically with like, I would say, entry level consumers maybe, or entry level, not even clients, because I don't coach anymore, but you can confuse people very quickly when you get into the weeds.
Oh yeah. And then when you confuse people, then they won't take action.
Yeah. Interesting. So simplicity is like a big key part of your coaching thought process, it seems.
Definitely. Yeah, because people overcomplicate things, and then usually they are trying to figure out which way do they go, and they just procrastinate taking action, or they just never take action because it's just easier to stay where they are because they know what they're doing here. Interesting.
Well, I think it's a great thought process.
Yeah. Just so you know, I have a pretty good folder of studies on carbonated water just because of all the writing we have for BevLab. And I'm digging through for the words renal and kidney and everything. And I think the big distinction here is the carbonation and when there's phosphoric acid added. So I think they're tangentially almost kind of maybe close to possibly being right, but they're not. So it's not the carbonated water. But I'd have to dig deeper. But yeah, you said that, and I'm like, I think I have enough studies to potentially fact check this real quick, but I just can't do it. It's basically guilt by association with cola sodas.
And that's how a lot of things are. It's kind of like the causation or the correlation is not causation type thing.
Exactly. So then you get this comment. And it's like, okay, are we going to go and hit PubMed and dig up 500 studies for this thing? And it's like, I don't know. At some point you run out of time in the day. I think like a lot of this, like with your clients, with your training, with what we're doing business-wise and personal health-wise and everything is, well, a lot of times we forget to just ask the simple question, what are you optimizing for? And that's going to shift over the course of your life. What I'm optimizing for now as someone who's almost 45 years old is definitely different than what I optimized for in my 20s, And, but you have to have an honest answer to that, because for me, I'm not optimizing for becoming a professional CrossFit athlete, so I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently than you. But when people can't even think about that or answer that question, you can't manage anything because you have no bigger goal. And then once you have a bigger goal, you could have a smaller goal that's more specific and everything. So what are you optimizing for? And I think like I come back to that all the time, because it's like, oh wait, I'm not optimizing for 180, 190 grams of protein every day. And that's okay, because I'm going to be able to achieve my personal goals if I don't. However, I do, after talking to you, I think I need to up my caloric game a little bit. So.
That is really true. I feel like anytime that I've been on the bandwagon, the best is when I have a goal that I understand and I know the direction that I'm going. Mike, you've talked a lot about like competing and competition being really good drivers for people for a couple of years. And this like general athlete thought process that like so many people are falling into, that I am currently completely obsessed with, I think is like it's the easiest I've ever felt pushed to do things like eat well and get after it. And it's really hard to kind of explain, but like CrossFit, High Rocks, this Apex athlete stuff, like people are really into this right now. And I think it's easy for people to quantify when they have like the run club, when they have some sort of performance metric. And I think as we're getting away from like beach body season type culture, maybe it's easier for people to, optimize for a specific thing rather than optimizing for losing 15 pounds for the summer.
Mm-hmm. Kaitlyn, yeah, I agree, because if I didn't have the annual swim meet that we do every year in August out here, then, and it's just a master swim meet. It's fun. I know all the people. We have a good time and everything, but it enables me to have something to chase. And like, my goal isn't to break records. My goal is to age gracefully and not lose too much time each year. And I have some smaller goals, but so I do believe people need something to compete for. If you're semi-athletic, no one's asking you to get first place or break records. I just think that doing a 5K every now and then is a good way to motivate yourself to, even if you just don't want to be embarrassed, like that's good enough to get yourself to the, whatever, a 10-minute mile or whatever, number is decent enough for you. But Kaitlyn, what is your competition situation? We haven't really gotten into that. Are you getting after it with some of that?
Yeah. So right now I'm looking at my next competition. I have an online qualifier in October, I believe, for Fittest of the Coast. And then if I qualify for that, it'll be in January. And then after that, in February or March will be the CrossFit Open, the CrossFit season. So CrossFit Open, if you qualify, you go to quarterfinals. If you qualify, you go to semifinals. If you qualify, you go to the games. So my goal would be next year is to make semifinals, because this year I made quarterfinals. So my goal would be next step.
How do you do that? Are you focusing on strengths, or are you trying to eliminate weaknesses? Like, what do you got to do here?
So my biggest weakness is strength. I'm a smaller person. I'm very, very good at endurance. Like, I'm really good at like suffering, and anything that requires cardio, I'm there. My strength needs work, and then my skill needs a little bit of work. I do have something called Ehlers-Danlos. So it's a severe form of hypermobility. So it makes strength training really hard because my joints just want to move around when they shouldn't. So I don't have a lot of stability in those long ranges of motion. So just something that I need to continue to work on. So that makes gymnastics a little bit more tough because of the way that my scapula moves. And it makes a lot of those heavier, like higher percentage work a lot harder. And my nervous system takes more of a hit. So it takes a little bit more time for me to recover from things like that. So it's just finding what I need to work on and kind of working around it, because a lot of people who have what I have, Ehlers-Danlos, I've worked with clients who are like, oh, well, I can't do that because I have this. And I'm like, you can. It's just, you have to look at it from a different perspective and maybe come at it at a different way than a normal athlete would.
So with that hypermobility, when you're in like the middle of a muscle up where you're like on the bar, your joints just go all the way and you don't have that stability to build off of. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So it's actually how I started getting, like sacrum issues or SI joint issues, because I was squatting so deep, and at the bottom of my squat, like my butt would literally touch the floor almost, but I didn't have any stability or strength at the bottom of the squat. So my sacrum would start to shift, and I ended up herniating a disc 2 years ago in the middle of a GHD. So that was like the worst experience of my life. But then I was having knee problems over this last year because my kneecap isn't tracking properly, because it's just like moving around when it should be like stable.
That is really interesting. I feel like most people have the opposite problem, where they have absolutely no mobility at all and they are so tight. That is really interesting. So how does a CrossFit Open work? I might be selfishly asking here, but you don't belong to a box, correct?
Correct. And you don't need to for the Open. So for the Open, you submit videos online and you submit your score. So there are 3 weeks. Each week on Thursday, they'll announce the workout, and the workout needs to be submitted online by the end of Monday. And that happens for 3 weeks. And if you finish in the top 10%, it's either 10 or 20. It's 10. If you finish in the top 10%, you move on to quarterfinals. And then from quarterfinals, same thing, top 10% move on to semifinals. And then there are different in-person semifinal events that either 2, 3, or 4 athletes will move on to the games.
So you get the workout assigned on like Thursday morning. Is there a strategy where you could try twice, or is it
you can try it as many times as you'd like?
Well, right, but I mean, you're gonna get sore. So like,
yeah,
do you just go balls to the wall on Thursday, or like, what is your like game plan when you?
Usually, what I do is I do it Friday morning. So Thursday will be an active recover day. So like, I'll just do some light movement. Friday, I'll hit it in the morning. And if I feel like, okay, it went well, I didn't have any mistakes, I went as hard as I could, I'll leave it. If I feel like I need to redo, I'll do another like rest or active recovery day on Saturday, and then hit it again on Sunday or Monday, depending on how sore I am.
Yeah, I was going to say, because if you make yourself so sore, you might screw over the second chance. But if you do it early enough, you might have the time to recover and and kind of do it again. That's
Yeah, it
interesting.
definitely depends on the workout too, because like the first workout that was announced this year, it was like over 250 wall balls and like 150 box jump overs in like a 15-minute time cap. So that would leave you very sore. So you'd have to take maybe a couple of days before you redo it, or your legs would just be completely useless.
That's something you're good at, though, I'm imagining.
Yeah, that was one of my best workouts. I'm really good at burpees is like my best movement. Any sort of burpee, I will win the workout.
That's awesome. So part of it's almost like luck of the draw with what you're doing. And then
That's one of the things I love the most about CrossFit is you can be really good at one thing, but then there's like all of these other things that you can get better at. So like I could be really good at lifting, but then maybe my gymnastics needs work, or maybe my double unders need work, or maybe I need to learn how to move more efficiently in the row or in burpees or in skiing or on the assault bike. So there's always something to work on, and there's always different things that are being introduced.
So are you like being good at burpees? Are you doing burpees that often then, or are you kind of just, you don't even need to?
Not really. No, it's almost like if there's a burpee in a workout, I'm usually using it as like more recovery. I'm not going slow, but because I'm so efficient in the movement, my heart rate won't spike as much.
That's hilarious. People who like hate burpees are sitting here like, what?
Yep.
I love it. So how does your personal, I think we talked about supplement industry and some of the things you see coming. What's your personal stack outside of the first form? Are you going crazy, or is it just the first form protein and some energy drinks?
Yeah, I'm really basic when it comes to things. Like I take a vitamin, D3K2. I do omega-3s. I do digestive enzymes on some of my more like larger meals just because I'm eating so much food. Mm-hmm. I'll do a probiotic. It usually is in the form of, I use First Form greens. I've been using those for like 7 years and I really like how they make me feel. So I just continue to take them. I do just like your standard multivitamin. I do energy drinks. And for everybody who asks me, probably the most common question, how many of these do you drink a day? I drink one. This is my singular energy drink I will drink today. If I'm doing reviews, it might change, but generally it's one. My husband has 3, so you can judge him, not me. Yeah, that's basically it. And then I'll have like whey protein after my workout with some fast digesting carbs. I'll do electrolytes multiple times throughout the day, really depending on how much I'm sweating, how much I'm training. And then I'll do just a whey protein in my Ninja Creamy at night, and that's it. Gotcha. So I'm not going crazy and all the stuff, and creatine, of course.
What's your mineral status? Are you, because you're hitting it pretty hard, are you taking extra magnesium, zinc? Like, have you tinkered with potassium against all the sodium you're getting in?
I haven't really played around with it. I am thinking about playing around more with it to see kind of how I feel, because there are times, especially as of late, where it's really hot, like it's 98 degrees today, and I'm going to go train in my garage, I want to see how I perform better, but I noticed that like I'm usually having 2 to 4 scoops of electrolytes a day, and that'll be like, I use one that's 500 milligrams of sodium. I think it's 200 milligrams of potassium, 50 milligrams of magnesium. So I'm getting quite a bit, but like the last time I had blood work done, I had low sodium, which was very interesting, but it's because I eat so clean. I don't eat any processed foods that's like that, and me salting my food is the crux of my sodium.
Mm-hmm. It's tough with blood work too. I don't really trust the mineral numbers that well. And there's also hair mineral analyses you can do, but even then sodium, my sodium's always a mess because I'm in saltwater pools, so I'm never going to get a clean reading on that, or having a water softener. So, it's tough. You got to kind of go by feel and just look at the ratios, in my opinion. But for a lot of like general people, and so like, obviously if you're sweating a ton, you need more sodium. So like what you need is going to be way different than a sedentary person.
Correct.
But for me, like talking to a regular person, like the easiest and best way to feel better is just start bumping up potassium and see how you feel. Don't get to the point of having heart palpitations, but a lot of, in general, most people are very, very potassium deficient. But where you're at, as sweating a lot and everything, I'd almost be looking like just, how you feel with the sodium, and just make sure potassium comes along for the ride. But also, the other thing we haven't talked about, or whatever, like we do a lot of this with the iron homeostasis content we've put together with Helena is iron. And that's a huge thing with female athletes, like the heel strike or the foot strike and stuff. You could actually like explode your cells and lose iron through that as well. So it's like, it's insane. I'm sure like all those box jumps you do is hitting that a little bit as well. So are you tracking any of the iron ferritin type numbers, or looking at any of that?
I'm due for some blood work this month, so that'll be interesting to do because in my last panel, I didn't like dive deep into all of the different things that you can test for iron. I wasn't anemic, I know that, but I do have a history of being anemic and probably for that reason, but it also depends on like how much training I'm doing and how much stress I'm under. I have tried to take iron pills in the past and they always make me super dizzy to the point where like I can't even take them. I don't know if that has to do with the fact that maybe I'm not properly absorbing it. And the more that I read the articles that whenever I have a video on iron, I start to realize, oh, maybe I should look into lactoferrin, you know?
I am a massive fan of Lactoferrin. I was before we even started working with Helena. There is a business relationship there, obviously, but yeah, it's literally a miracle molecule or one of those things that one of the studies actually says that. But yeah, I'm a believer. We'll have to get you some just to see how you feel and everything. It would actually make more sense to get your blood work done first, and then we can see what happens. But if your ferritin is low, and that's what one of the studies has shown is that lactoferrin, and I think the study was on bovine lactoferrin, but the lactoferrin outperformed an iron supplement on getting the iron levels looking better, just because iron isn't always the issue itself. Sometimes it's like trapped in the liver, or you need the air traffic controller, you need the mobilization, you need the iron binding proteins to be regulated and everything. And so that's that could be a huge thing for you to play with at least. And if you don't feel anything or don't feel any better, then no harm, no foul. As far as I'm concerned, like lactoferrin's a very low risk ingredient.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of trying different things that help optimize my performance for sure.
Yeah. And then there's even some preclinical studies where they're combining it with creatine. We've kind of talked about that here and there. So that would be cool to get some human data on that one. Awesome. Well, cool. Yeah. Not sure if anything else. What are some of your other favorite flavors of energy drinks?
Ooh, I'd say, Ghost Raspberry Cream is my number one. I'm a really big fan lately of 3D and their flavors. They make a great cucumber melon. They just came out with a raspberry sorbet that's really close to Ghost Raspberry Cream. It doesn't quite beat it, but it's really good. And I'm a big fan of Gorilla Mind lately too. They've been coming out with a bunch of new flavors this year. They came out with a red gummy fish, a rainbow sherbet, a root beer. They just dropped a fruit punch that I'll review later on today. And Ghost is always my number one though. And then Phorm Energy though, I've really been loving what they've done. Their first Phorm Energy drinks when they first originally dropped were not good. These are a lot better, and they just dropped a non-carbonated lemonade and a pink lemonade. I actually need to send it to Ben. I promised I would, and I will be sending them this weekend. They are dangerous because they are non-carbonated, so they go down really smooth and the flavor is great. So you could drink them really easy.
Awesome. Oh, hey, if you pay money to ship it, I'll make sure I reimburse it. So that's cool. And yeah, a lot of First Form stuff. We got to give a shout out to Brian Teach over there. He's the one that we hang with like at Simpson Labs and stuff when we're in town in LA and everything. And he's doing a great job over there. I sent him some ingredients, and guy's super intelligent. He comes back with some really good questions and everything. So Brian Teach is he's your guy. I think he's got your number pegged for the for his, the way he formulates and everything. So it sounds like they're doing some really good things over there. Cool. Ben, you got anything else? Oh, Ben's microphone. Ben's dead in the water here. So
Ben's got nothing.
He's a thumbs up. This is where we get to make fun of him, and he can't argue back anything. Well, cool. It's been super awesome making content with you and everything. And at some point, I think let's talk about your podcast real quick and everything. I think I'm the only PricePlow team member who hasn't made it on the podcast yet.
You are, so then you would be next.
I'm not inviting myself on until I start making some of my own content, and then we will talk. Because I've actually scripted out about 10 videos that I'm going to be doing. So completely separate stuff. I'm gonna be running, walking, and talking and stuff. So either way, I don't deserve anything until I get that out. But yeah, let's talk about your podcast, please.
Yeah. As far as my podcast goes, I started it back in 2021. I have over 300 episodes. A lot of it when I first started was solo work, mainly because one, I wanted to get more experience with speaking on the mic and actually being comfortable with having a conversation with nobody. And two, because I just wanted to tell my story and tell my perspective on life and kind of share the lessons that I was learning throughout life when it came to mental toughness, mindset, discipline, not quitting on yourself, doing all those things, sharing my personal journey, sharing my story from my eating disorder, helping people with nutrition and fitness. And now, as of late, over the last year and a half or so, I've been having guests on to share their story and share their perspectives or their expertise on what they're doing because I'm a big proponent of, I want to add as much value as possible to the people who listen to my podcast. So getting other people on is a great way to do that, to share different perspectives.
Awesome. And if one question to finish off on, is there anything that the supplement industry or the beverage industry could do better for you? Like, are we missing anything for you, or for maybe CrossFitters in general? Do you think there's anything that we can improve on?
I think we need more energy drinks with less caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of CrossFitters drink Reign, and I don't understand that, because I think my heart would actually explode during a workout if I drank a Reign before a workout. But like, I'm a huge fan of, if I'm going to have 2 energy drinks in a day, I will never have like 2 Ghosts. I'll always look for a Bum or something. So I want more options that are similar to Bum, where it's like, we get the focus, we get the caffeine a little bit, but maybe we throw some like performance ingredients, like combine a C4 and a Bum together, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So what is your daily maximum of caffeine that you prefer to stay within? I
like to stay 300 or under. And if it's 300, I'm not going to do it in one can, because that's a lot in one can for me. I'm a sensitive person.
Okay. So yeah, between that 125, 133, 150 milligram range, if you could have that with some functional ingredients alongside, that's good. That's kind of what's kind of cool is that, Doss Cunningham came on episode 222. I'm not sure if you heard it yet, but towards the end of the conversation, he talked about there being an opening for that. And you guys are on the same page, because not everyone wants 200. The Ultimate's got 300. But yeah, what if like the C4 Smart Energy, what if or something similar, they dialed it down or made it, would it be acceptable to have a smaller can that is less caffeine, or do you want the full size, like 16 or 12 ounce type
I'm
thing?
a big fan of a 16. I'll do a 12 if I have to, but I'm a fan of I'm a sipper. So I like to sip on my 16 ounce, and then when it's gone, I'm sad. So I couldn't imagine it being smaller than that, and then being extremely sad when it's gone.
So good tasting 16 ouncer that's maxed at 150 or maybe a little less.
Yeah, with some functional ingredients in there.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. And so, yeah, as we know, there's Bum Energy, but that's 12 ounce, right?
Yeah. And that's the most unfortunate part about Bum. I understand, because you're lower caffeine, you're a little smaller, but man, if it was 16 ounce, because their flavors are great, that would be dangerous for me. I drink too many of them.
Right. And then there's Lost and Found. I'm not sure if you've messed with them, but they got the 150, right?
Yeah, they're okay. I'm not a big fan, but Grizzly also does 150 or 160. They're pretty good.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. We'll take it to the drawing board and see who wants to bite on that. But I think people are starting to become slightly aware. Is you can listen. You don't have to drop the price so much, and you could probably sell more, and people would be happier too. And I don't know. Yeah. And then even for me, sometimes I just want I mentioned this earlier, like a Diet Coke style beverage where it's not the flavor, but 50 milligrams of caffeine would be nice for a 5 to 6 p.m. type situation where I know I'll be able to get to bed, but I don't know if that'll happen. So
that's why I like those bucked up. What are they called? The hydration ones. I like those.
Nice. Okay, sweet. Cool. Well, Kaitlyn, thanks for joining us and everything. And we will be seeing you. Yeah. Give us the social media handles. Cause I mentioned it's the Powerhouse Mentality on Instagram.
The Powerhouse Mentality is the podcast. You can find it on Spotify and Apple. It's also on Instagram. The Powerhouse Journal on Instagram, and then Kaitlyn Kenna Fitness on Instagram and TikTok.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to, we will see you. And subscribe to everyone's Instagrams. And thanks for joining. Also, I forgot to drink any water because I was enjoying my C4 serial killer, but I do have water here in my custom made perfect shaker. So thanks to Darren. Check out that podcast episode. We'll have that linked into the, and Kaitlyn, do you have a perfect shaker?
I do. It's actually in my dishwasher because I left it in the car for 2 days. So it's been in the dishwasher a couple times through because I am not going to throw that thing out.
Oh, we have to get you another one. Did it have the first Phorm protein in there, just getting hot in the summer?
Yeah, it did. It had some protein in there,
How's North Carolina, by the way?
It's great.
That's good. And you I guess you're just kind of used to moving around, huh?
Oh yeah, it's just I just go wherever the wind takes me at this point. It's what I married into.
Yep, you know what you got into. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, and thanks for all the great content. We look forward to more.
Awesome. Thank you.